Good evening. Welcome to the November 13, 2018 Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Glad to see you all here this evening. Clerk, let's read the roll, please.
Council members Erickson. Here. Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Brecky.
All right. I would like to introduce Pastor Lars Olson this evening. Pastor Olson is with First Lutheran Church, and he said he has a 12-minute invocation he's going to give. I'm just kidding. But he is going to give our invocation. He's our neighbor just down the street, just down Dakota at First Lutheran. Pastor Olson, thanks for being here. So I would ask that you all rise for that and then stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for letting me be here this evening. It is my pleasure to be here as a member of this community along with you and a clergy member in the Lutheran Church here, where we remind people all the time that in the midst of all of the troubles that come with politics and governance, with opinions and important issues and difficulties, and it gets personal for people a lot of the times, we remind them that government is part of God's work in the world to care for people and to make sure that we have what we need, and that there is actually a gift from God in good government for us. That is an important part of how God reigns within the world, and you guys are all part of doing that work, and you here in attendance are also part of seeing that happen. And so in the midst of all the wrangling and difficulty that comes with this, we don't oftentimes give enough thanks to God for the good government and asking God to bless our government and to work within those who are here, and remember that God is at work within those things. And so I would ask you to pray with me if you are so inclined. Eternal God, ruler of all, graciously regard those who have been set in positions of authority among us, that guided by your Spirit they may be in a high purpose, wise in counsel, and firm in good resolution, unwavering in their duty to care for all in our community, that under them we may be governed quietly and peaceably through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are going to move on to the approval of our consent agenda for the evening. Councilors, any motions on that agenda?
Move approval. Second.
Move to approve by Selberg, seconded by Sale. Councilors, any discussion on that? Okay. If not, I'd ask for a vote on that, please.
Council members Erickson.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 8-0. Move on to our regular agenda. Councilors, any motions on that?
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, move to approve by Kiley, seconded by Erickson. Any discussion, council? If not, a vote on that, please.
Council members Erickson.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that has passed 8-0. We're now at the public input portion of tonight's agenda. And as a reminder, input during this portion will last no longer than 30 minutes because public input for all regular agenda items will be taken. You're asked to limit your general public input items to topics not appearing later on in the agenda. For this portion and regular agenda items, speakers are limited to no more than 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the council. This time I'd like to invite members of the public forward for that. Before I do that, I would like to grant Councilor Erickson a point of personal privilege before we get started.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, first of all, start by thanking those that have reached out to our family. We lost a very important person in our family this week, very unexpected. And because of that, of our Uncle Ted passing, my little brother got to join us, which is bittersweet. He lives in Las Vegas, so I don't get to see him that often. And with it being Veterans Day, I would like to just recognize my little brother, Bo. He serves in the Army National Guard in Las Vegas and has done 2 different tours. Yesterday, we recognized all the veterans, celebrated Veterans Day yesterday, observed it. And we all are touched by some way, shape, or form of veterans that are allowing us to be here today, to being able to speak our mind, being able to share with us. And so I just want to introduce my little brother. He is a hero to me and a very important person in my family. And so all the way from Las Vegas, I just would like to welcome him to council chambers.
Thanks, Bo. Nice to have you, man. All right, we'll begin our public input time. And clerk, for the record, the time is 7:07. Come forward, please.
Greetings, Mayor and Council, fellow residents of Sioux Falls. My name is Christopher, the Living Man, and I am a new resident of this city. I come before you tonight as I did last week, and will continue to do so every week until the 5G cell phone network upgrade is addressed by the Council, a network that the Mayor and Senator Thune are pushing to get installed into Sioux Falls as soon as possible. I should reiterate to the Mayor and his Council that I am no technophobe. I've been in front of a computer since I was 25, and I've had a cell phone since I was 40. I also have a 145 IQ, and I've attended 12 semesters of college in varying subjects. I've been following this tech for a while now and have come across a variety of frightening facts. I come before you tonight in every meeting to come to put them forth to you in this public. The mayor of this city claims to have thoroughly investigated this tech himself. I say if he has missed a lot and has irresponsibly passed over anything and everything that points to any dangers concerning it. Children, pregnant women, and the elderly will be most at risk following the installation of this technology. With 4G, you're able to move away from whatever is producing these waves or avoid it altogether. The waves and the frequencies that 5G will be using will be absolutely unavoidable, in that towers will be placed everywhere in substantial numbers, and these will use actual microwaves, or MMWs, which are infinitely more dangerous than the current technology. Midco offers the public, at 3 times the price, mind you, the choice to use wired internet instead of wireless in schools for a very good reason, because the waves we use now are considered to be dangerous. The World Health Organization classified cell phone radiation to be a possible 2B carcinogen back in 2011. What 5G will put out is 10 times worse and will be absolutely impossible for everyone to avoid. This also means that even if you don't have a computer or phone, or even if you live in the Stone Age technologically, you will have no way to escape these microwaves. A selling point of this tech is that the current spectrum range of 30 gigahertz or so is getting saturated, and that we need more bandwidth in order to accommodate the current future demand. If we simply need more bandwidth, then why is 5G opening up the entire remaining spectrum of frequencies, high, medium, and low, instead of, say, just another 30 gigahertz of bandwidth, double what we use now? All of these bandwidths are untested and unregulated, and what little is regulated recognizes only thermal effects. 5G produces harm at all levels to all beings, including subthermal levels. Because there is so much proof and research available that proves this, it behooves me to believe that maybe some of the city council has been paid off to ignore it and proceed with allowing it to go in. Believe me, I've discovered much more sinister possible uses of this new tech, and those will be released in further council meetings. Once again, council and citizens, I urge you to put 5G dangers in a Google search box and do your own homework. When you do, it'll be obvious that perhaps the mayor and this council are less concerned about the possible health dangers that will present with this new tech, and maybe allowing this at the behest of some far-off senator like Thune, who may have a different unknown agenda, or more likely is doing this for the wealth and benefit of one or more of the resident telecom giants who stand to make billions and trillions off this.
Thank you, Christopher.
Disregard of the health and mortality of the citizens of this city. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. How do I turn this on?
It's on.
It's on?
Oh, there you go.
My name is Janelle Kane. I live at 1808 South Lincoln Avenue, and I have not seen you in a while, but I'm back. I would like to thank the council member that invited me to accompany them to Lifescape today to talk about the alternatives and the new ideas that they have about the parking lot and the concerns that they have. In doing so, I would like to address the vacating of Elmwood and what they tried to basically change the minds of the 3 people who voted against it, is what they've done one at a time. Consequently, that happened last week, and today I got my letter that says they're having the meeting on Monday night with just the homeowners regarding this, and if we have attorneys, or...
Turn the letter.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
No, the other way.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. And if we have attorneys or whatever, we will be bringing them, but it'll be just the homeowners at that point. I am a single woman. I live there by myself. I'm very proud of the property that I live in. I like to keep it up. This is a look for the winter time, and I share it with, of course, my loyal companions that never shut up. My 4 little dogs. I don't know what I'd do without them. But I want you to take note to what I'm going to address is this tree right back here that you see right here. Last week they were removing trees and the foundations from that property. I take great pride in my backyard. I always have. That is a picture in the summertime of what it looks like. I did tell you previously that there were sucker trees. They have been removed. And basically this is what we're looking at. Now the tree that I had around, the circle around on the initial picture of my home, when you get back to the fence and look over, that's the base and how big that tree is. I was in the shower at 8 a.m. on Thursday morning and my little dogs were going crazy. And right outside my door, this is a tree that Rick DeSanto from meeting 1 knocking on my door said would not come down. And that's what they were doing. They were cutting this tree down. It is an enormous tree. It has been there a very long time. No problem, no problem, no problem. We will leave the tree. Well, they're not leaving the tree. They left none of the trees. They were cutting it down as fast as they possibly could. I spent on the phone from 8:10 to 10 minutes to 9 because I had to go finish teaching a 40-hour fundamentals of property management class. So they took it down very quickly. Large equipment.
Janelle, we're right at 3 minutes, so.
Well, this is all I'm going to say. This is what my backyard looks like now, straight out onto Elmwood Avenue. Nothing's there. All I'll see is cars and hear barking. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public input this evening?
Tim Stanga. I worked with the city this summer to get a couple houses cleaned up around my neighborhood. It took about 2.5 months to be able to do it. Finally got the houses cleaned up. But the problem is that's only 2 out of the neighborhood. We could probably go, what, Pat, about 50 or 60 more on our drive-through? I would like the mayor to let these guys do a job that when they go to a call, they don't put blinders on just to drive by 10 or 15 houses to get to one and then say, yep, there's a problem at this house, but yet they drove by 10 or 15 of them as they were going to that one. Let's give these guys a little leverage and give them a 2-block radius or a 3-block radius so you don't have one neighbor picking out another neighbor because they don't get along. You see that so many times. It just, it's wrong. We had that guy from Lifescape come up and brag about a house that they moved on 6th Street. I'd like to have the city council and the mayor go look at that house. You know, our neighborhoods go down the tubes when we let somebody move a house in, when they have to put it in the wrong direction to begin with to fit it on the property. I can guarantee that anyone that is sitting here in front of me today would not have this next to their house at all. It's pathetic. And they always tell a lot of my neighbors they want to add on to their garages and they want to add on to their houses, but yet the city says, well, you're going to have so much green space in your yard. Go look at this house and tell me what kind of green space they have and how this was done. Because I'm telling everybody that's going to add on to their garage and their houses to go by and take a picture of this house, and then when the city says, well, sorry, you can't do this, bring that picture with you, and then ask the city how they got passed. Another thing I want to reiterate, and a lot of people ask me the same thing. During the winter months, your sewer bill is gauged off your water usage during the winter. So during the summer, your sewer rates are going to be cheaper. So you got to watch your usage of water in the winter will tell you what your sewer bill is going to be in the summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Sioux Falls. We had a 27-year-old that committed suicide. I'm not going to get into details of alleged sexual assault downtown nightclub. She was soon to be married and had kids. The allegations are someone slipped her something in her drink, drugged her up, sexually assaulted her, went through counseling for 30 days, couldn't take it, they cremated her this weekend. This is what we face downtown. Y'all know about putting up flowers on the boulevard and fireplaces to make it beautiful and get business downtown. I'm not going to speak on the club that this happened to, but the club that it happened to, the bouncers were off-duty police officers. After this investigation is through, I would like the chief of police to do internal investigation and reprimand his police officers for this allegation. These officers that are off-duty have to report crime, have to stop sexual assaults from happening in alcohol establishments. Getting back to Wiley's. This was an incident of Wiley's. We had that discussion 2 years ago. Chief of police, what did he do? Nothing to those police officers, did he? He did not discipline them for letting the people get drunk, pushing them out, letting them fight outside. Numerous of calls. I'm going to have to go on Facebook Live and do that one. So we have to put it all on Facebook Live with these off-duty police officers and what they do. Now, I'm totally against police officers working in clubs. We should not have them working in clubs whatsoever. It's not professional. So after this investigation's over that this girl committed suicide, I will release the bar and the officers that was there that night and could have prevented this from happening. So then KSFY has a story on the drug problem here and that the streets are getting cleaned up. And so I talked to Mayor before the meeting here, and the numbers are looking good. As far as the street crimes unit has told me. So do we have a long time coming to get more drugs off the street? Absolutely. How long is this strategy going to happen? We don't know. I don't know what they're doing to get all the drugs off the streets, but it's good that we are getting them off the streets. And Mayor said that he was very much involved in the street cleanup of drugs. So Mayor, thank you for that. But we have a lot of rental houses that we need to get a hold of the owners for letting these people come in and repeatedly getting busted at the same rental house. We need to hold these landlords accountable for not letting this happen in these rental properties here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sierra. Any other general public input tonight? Good evening.
Hi, my name is Bridget Myers. I'm a business owner here in Sioux Falls. We came in front of you last week for a second reading on our backyards. I want to go on record with some of the concerns that we have and questions that we never had answered, and hoping maybe we can find those answers by coming to you again and asking for answers. We were unable to get the developer to concede on any of our requests for the proposed proposal in front of you. Actually, the proposal that you have is only about 30 feet difference from the original proposal, and as you can see, they are no longer doing a berm and trees and fence around the whole property like they had insisted they would do. We were disappointed because we came to you counting on your support, that you would put some type of guidelines on the project for us. The number one concern we had was the height of this building, shading our properties. The placement of the building was also in our top 3. The berm, fence, and trees the whole way around the project was also part of one of the things we had requested. The traffic on that Park Road has never been addressed. If you look at where that road is going to be, the end of where that entrance is right at the skate park. One of the counselors was out there and witnessed what happens after school at that intersection. There's about 20 to 30 kids that hang out there and ride their skateboards in and out of there. It was never even addressed, the danger of what's going to happen on that road. My kids use that park for baseball, and there's a lot of activity. That's a tiny road. I'm concerned about the traffic, and it was never addressed. What I don't understand is why can't we use the current road that the church has and have them use that road instead of making another entrance up where kids are hanging out and areas where the schools are using for parking. You were also able to witness some of the speeding on the road, the other counselor that was out there. My next question is, the water study that you guys were presented last week, that was not a completed water study. That was a preliminary water study. It concluded that the church is indeed flooding the neighbors, and the city has never enforced the water being fixed on the current landowner. So our concern is, why was the water study not completed with the groundwater test and the mooring test, and why were you told it was completed when the developer is now telling us it was not, and they're not even sure they're going to be able to build on that land now? So my second question is, why our counselor gave a video that was very biased towards the developer. That video did not show that we wanted our buildings turned a different direction, which was away from our homes. We wanted the buildings turned away from our homes and not up against the building. Oh, I got the wrong one.
Bridget, we're right at 3 minutes there.
That's fine. And my only question is, I would have liked to have seen that video with the building face that direction, because I guarantee you the shade would have been a lot less. So my only question is, how do we get these questions answered, and how will you be communicating with the citizens about this going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else tonight for public input? Clerk, next item, please.
Item 11, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations, highways and streets, $980,000.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. This is a good news story that we've collected about $980,000 more than what our budgeted amount is in the arterial street fund, and so we would come to you and ask for your support to appropriate those dollars. There's a complimentary item later in the agenda that will update the capital plan, but we can put these dollars to work to invest in the arterial streets.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, you have questions for Mark on this item? If not, I'd
approve. Second, Selberg.
Motion approved by Councilor Kiley and seconded by Selberg. Any discussion on this, Council? A vote on this item, please.
Council members Erickson, yes. Kiley,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 8-0. Item 12.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing provisional supplemental appropriations for snow removal operations, highways and streets, $1 million.
Thank you again.
You can't get too far away. I saw you
Sorry.
try to sit back down. You got to come back up.
This is a provisional budgetary supplement request. As you guys know, we had a very active winter season at the beginning of the year from January through April. We had 6 snow alerts. We had 16 de-icing events. So far, the fall is looking good. We've had some flurries here and there. We do have funds, current budgeted funds, that will likely be able to address if we have to plow out the city about 2+ times. And so this provisional budget request is provisional in nature. It won't be used unless we actually go through our current budgeted funds. So we would ask for your support.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have questions for Mark on this? Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Cotter, one of the things that Thursday night last week was one of those times. Did that surprise us a little bit of how slick it got? Or I had a friend at coffee, which they usually do, can look for a way to give me a bad time, but there was a lot of concern right at drive time at the end of the day, and they said, their point was they were kind of joking that, we were trying to save as much money as we could because we hadn't appropriated this extra money yet. But was that close to where we needed to do some treatment of streets in the evening and then first thing in the next morning? I mean, it was a little unusually cold too, and it was kind of one of those weird events.
It was unique, and anytime we go into these transitions of summer to winter, we did have about 22 sanders out with salt on them, but we had a few areas that the situation must have just been perfect for creating some real de-icing events, and so it happened fairly quickly. So we did have about half our fleet out that we thought was going to meet the operational needs, but we still had some slick areas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions for Mark, Council? I'd look for a motion on this item.
I'd move to approve.
Move to approve by Councilor Starr, seconded by Sale. Any further discussion? A vote on this, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 13, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 117, Peddlers and Vendors, Subchapter Right-of-Way Allowances in the Central Business District, generally to allow natural gas fire pits in furniture zones.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Nitzert.
Thank you. The purpose of this ordinance is to create common sense regulations that will enable downtown businesses to expand their outdoor dining opportunities beyond what our climate normally allows, while providing adequate protection for the general public in the city. What we know is that when we get people downtown, we create economic impact. When we can extend and increase the opportunities for people to be outside, we enhance the street life and the energy downtown. This will create a new ambiance that will further define our downtown as a destination for unique experiences. Our greatest challenge is our climate, and this will uniquely help to overcome that. This is not a new idea. Using fire pits for heat and ambiance in a public setting has proven successful in other communities and in other venues in Sioux Falls. Fire pits as well as fireplaces are a common feature at restaurants, bars, and recreational facilities. They have been used safely for many years. This ordinance is a product of several months of meetings with various city departments, a presentation to the Public Services Committee, implementing feedback from the council, as well as multiple revisions based on feedback and compromise with city staff and stakeholders. We included city departments including fire, planning and development services, and public works to ensure that they were comfortable with the proposal and their concerns were addressed. This ordinance would allow fire pits to be installed in the sidewalk patio area of a downtown business, subject to a number of restrictions that will ensure safety for the public. Those include: the sidewalk use permit must be obtained to allow a sidewalk patio. A fire pit must be fueled by natural gas. The gas line must be installed underground, registered with South Dakota One Call, inspected, clearly marked, have a shutoff in a secure location inside of the business, and have an emergency shutoff outside and accessible to the general public. The fire pit must be located inside of the sidewalk patio area and not in the designated pedestrian sidewalk. The fire pit is subject to an inspection at installation and then annually thereafter. The fire pit must be protected from vehicles with barriers such as bollards or planters. The fire pit must be constructed so that it cannot tip over. The installation of the fire pit must meet the city's fire, mechanical, and engineering requirements and meet the manufacturer's specifications. The fire pit must be 10 feet from buildings and at least 2 feet from furniture or other objects. Before the fire pit can be installed, the applicant must obtain a permit from the city, which is subject to review of a site plan, including the proposed placement of the fire pit, its dimensions, distance to other objects, and the pedestrian sidewalk, and any other requirements of an application that the city requires. The business owning the fire pit must obtain and keep in force liability insurance that covers the owner and indemnifies the city for at least $1 million per occurrence. For those who may have concerns about dealing with any issues that may arise after the installation, the ordinance allows the city to modify or add conditions to the permit if it deems necessary to address concerns. In addition, the city is empowered to deny a permit before issuance, suspend or revoke a permit if it becomes a problem as well. The city has wide latitude to enforce regulations and limitations it deems necessary to protect the general public. I also want to point out that this ordinance has been endorsed by Downtown Sioux Falls. We all received a letter last week that states their support. This ordinance is a product of collaboration and input from a wide variety of stakeholders and a lot of work. I want to thank Councilor Erickson for all of her hard work leading this, as well as Councilor Brecky for her involvement, city staff who provided valuable input and guidance, and our legislative operations manager, Jim David, for all of his work, research, and assistance. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'd ask for your support and a vote yes to move this ordinance into law, and so we can have fire pits. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Sierra Broussard, downtown is always for your rich people. Here we go again. So do y'all shop downtown? You know how expensive it is downtown? Some of you council members are out of touch in y'all's districts with crime, but yet y'all want to vote to bring more tourists downtown. I'm not getting it. That's like putting golf courses in Central District. If it says to put fireplaces, go ahead and do it. But like I told you, we got one sexual assault. We got drugs down there flowing. Has anybody realized that? Are y'all back out of touch in that district? It amazes me. I went downtown and it's expensive. Let me tell you, it's not for your average poor person. You're a middle-class person. Not the prices there. It's always about your rich and your golf courses and your fire pits and let's beautify the city to make money. But we still are having crime here. We're still having gang members coming out. We still have illegal massages and prostitution from your rich people. I'm not getting it.
Welcome, Joe.
Good evening. I want to thank City Council for taking up this issue.
Can you just state your name for the record?
Bachelor with
Thanks,
Downtown
Joe.
Sioux Falls. And for the record, I also want to state that downtown is for everyone. You know, downtown produces, let me back up. There's been studies across the country of downtowns and what they do for cities. They produce more property tax revenue, more sales tax revenue on a per acre basis than other parts of cities. And what this does, this will allow small businesses to generate more revenue for themselves and for the city. It's going to extend the street life for downtown. There's precedents in other communities how to do this safely. I'm not going to go over everything that Councilor Neitzert had stated. I think that he stated it very well. I just want to reiterate a couple of points. One, the board of Downtown Sioux Falls has voted in favor of this. We debated the issue and felt that this was an important step to take in order to extend the street life beyond just the summer months. And the other point too is that, you know, there's kind of a psychological effect that fire and water have. People are naturally drawn to it, I think, because of basic human needs. You know, we want warmth and we want to cook food and whatever. There's something psychological about it. And so there is something there. There's a draw. It does create activity. You know, we've seen this in communities in other states that have fire pits. You can see it in Rapid City as well. And so I urge you all to please vote in favor of this, and I thank you for taking this up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input on this topic? Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Grant Talman, 1510 South Phillips Avenue. I had a really interesting email tonight from one of our new tenants at Washington Square, and she kind of talked about how her husband convinced her to move downtown, how she wasn't sure if she was going to enjoy it or not, and she said, you know what, I'll do it because he wants me to, and so she did. And she wrote in her blog today, and I was just sharing it with Joe over there, about how she couldn't believe how much she loves living in downtown Sioux Falls. And she talks about, Josiah's and the restaurants and the art that's up and down Phillips Avenue, and some of us that have been kind of working and living and investing and trying to bring back the downtown for the last 20, 25 years. It's really enlightening to see how the community is really starting to take effect and follow the downtown, and seeing their downtown and their namesake come back in such a very, very strong way. And I spoke a little bit about it last week, how we need to continually progress to adding different functions to our downtown, whether it be art, whether it be the river, whether it be the Falls Park, and now we've got this beautiful outdoor music park coming. There's so many different aspects of it, and this is just another one of those pieces that continually, and this is going to help retail and restaurants and other pieces, and just even the things that are free. The art, the art walk is free, so there is something for everybody downtown Sioux Falls, and we're trying to put free things downtown. There's obviously restaurants, there's bars, there's shopping, there's all these different things, and all we're trying to do is continually add things to extend the season for these small business owners that are also investing in our downtown. But again, I'd really like to thank the councilors that stepped up and helped with this and drafting this legislation and bringing it forward. And I'd like to thank the city of Sioux Falls too for stepping up and finding some compromise to make sure safety isn't sacrificed as well. So again, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Grant. Good evening.
Tim Stenga. It's nice that we're putting all that effort into figuring out if we can put pits downtown. At least the homeless will have a place to go and warm up while they're walking through downtown, so they make it to the homeless shelter on the east side. I'm hoping that all the effort that we put into putting these fire pits downtown, maybe we can put a little bit of this effort into cleaning up our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods are going to pot. We talk about them all the time, about the crime in every neighborhood. Again, I brought a few of the city councilors through my neighborhood. If we put 1/10 of an effort on what we have done on these fire pits into trying to clean up my neighborhood and trying to clean up the neighborhood over here, we'd have some great neighborhoods. I don't care what you do downtown. I've never been downtown. I'll never go downtown. You guys can invest all the money you want, but the thing is, you're turning a lot of people off for all the investment you're putting downtown. You're turning a lot of people off to even go downtown.
Any other input on this item?
One. I never mentioned
State your name, please.
Yep. I never mentioned this before. My name is Christopher Bruce. I live at 701 Duluth Avenue. I live in one of those neighborhoods, folks. And I've got to tell you, I came from a town that, Des Moines, Iowa, as a matter of fact, where everything was downtown. Everything. All the marathons, everything was all downtown. And we invested a whole ton of money in downtown, and everything else went to
Please watch your mouth, sir.
I'm so sorry. My fault. And I got to tell you that I think it's a bad idea to throw too much into downtown. Yes, there are businesses down there that need to thrive, and there are businesses that need to do better off-season business. But essentially, well, Let's just say it. I live right next to a guy who does crack all day, and it's been a year now that I've been calling the police and the local Department of Drug Enforcement, and they've done nothing. And I still live next to those people. They come in all day, all night long, et cetera, et cetera. I go up the street. There's, one of the things I moved here to Sioux Falls, I almost didn't move here because when I came here, I lived at the Baraka House, which is...
Is this about the fire pits? Can you tie this back to the fire pit discussion, please?
I'm trying to.
Okay.
Yes. My point being is that he's absolutely right. You have to pay attention to other neighborhoods as well as downtown, because if you invest too much in downtown and ignore everything else, then what good is the city? That's all I'm going to say about it.
Thank you. Council, is there a motion on this item before we move into any discussion?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Neitzer.
It moved to approve by Erickson and seconded by Neitzer.
Mr. Mayor.
Discussion on this. Council Erickson.
I make a motion to amend 117.079 parent B by replacing my with may in the second sentence.
Second.
All right. Motion by Erickson, seconded by Neitzer on that item. Any discussion?
It's just a previous typo from the original ordinance from years ago, so it's just cleanup language.
Okay. Can I get a vote on that amendment, please?
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that's passed 8-0. Now we're on to discussion on the amended main motion. Councilor Staley.
First of all, I just need to clarify for the public, this isn't something, in my understanding, the city isn't paying any money for this, right? That is correct. So there are no tax dollars involved. Now, well, I see people shaking their head, yes. So there is no tax dollars involved. So that this is a private enterprise. Sierra, I just want to address that. I understand that we have a conflict downtown. Well, Councilor Starr and I, Councilor Neitzer, Councilor Erickson, we've all spent the night at the Bishop Dudley House. There is a homeless issue down there. There's a poverty issue downtown. We're also working to make it a place where people want a destination place. We're trying to clean it up. So certainly don't have a problem with that. What I'd like to say is what are the parameters going to be for downtown? Is that the downtown business district, or would a business farther to the east on 8th Street, for example, can they have a fire pit in the sidewalk? Do you have to be a member of the downtown association to participate in this? Where do we draw the lines? If you cross over to 14th and maybe or farther north on Phillips Avenue or Dakota, they've got some of those little shops. Can they have one of these fire pits? What's the boundary? Councilor Neitzer, maybe you can address that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just looking for the verbiage because we have a couple of different boundaries, and I'm not sure if Jim David has it handy or if staff could help us with it, because we have the Main Street Improvement District.
And I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it says the Central Business District is the parameter for where this can take place. So if it's outside those boundaries, they cannot have, under the current proposal, fire pit.
I think Erica
right
might be able to help us with that, make sure we get this answer right.
Erica Beck with the Mayor's Office. My apologies, I don't have a map in front of me, but we do have that available on our website, and it is the downtown boundary. So the southern boundary for downtown is 14th Street. That extends up to Falls Park on the north. Just on the, I believe on the east, it's the boundary of Franklin, and it jogs in a couple of spots. And then on the west, it's Minnesota Avenue. So anywhere outside of that central business district boundary, this ordinance would not be applicable, but any location within the central business boundary, this would be applicable, and an individual business owner would be able to come forward to the city and apply for this opportunity through the sidewalk vending application.
So do they have to be a member of the downtown association, or can just be anybody in that area could?
Correct. There are standards through that sidewalk vending application process that any business owner, not necessarily a member of downtown Sioux Falls, could make application for to the city.
Thank you.
One more question. Could the, that bar up by the falls next to the farmer's market, could they have something like that?
Silver Moon?
Yes.
Great question. I believe that the boundary for this is just that road in and of itself, so I don't believe that they're actually in the boundary for this opportunity.
Permit anyway.
Okay.
Thank you, Erica. Councilors, other discussion on this item? Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This specifically addresses the furniture zones within the downtown district. So this is not talking about private properties such as we see currently. I know PAVE has a rooftop already. Wiley's has one. There are a few other establishments that already have these fire pits within their private property and outside of the downtown area throughout Sioux Falls. And so they currently exist on private property to this day. This is simply allowing it to happen on those sidewalk permits. So any of those furniture zones that we allow, any of those bump outs that we often call them, several of the downtown businesses have those. Some choose to use the propane heaters. Some choose to not have any type of fire pit. This simply just allows the use of the gas fire pit in that row, in that right-of-way during that time. So just want to make that clarification that it's very, very specific on those areas, because not just any business downtown would be able to do it because it can't be done safely. There's a sidewalk, but there's not enough of the bump out to do that safely. And so that's, just want to make that clarification. So the other thing I want to add to this, I want to thank Councilor Brecky and Councilor Neitzert for their help in drafting this, as well as our staff and all of those in the administration. We did really want to come together to find that compromise of allowing this to happen, but making sure that we're doing it in a safe manner. And so I think all the feedback and the presentation that Councilor Neitzert was able to give tonight, this is really about creating that ambiance and extending the downtown patio life. The businesses have reached out and wanted to do something like this, and it just really allows the increase of the use of those patios throughout the season. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would hope for your support on this particular item. Thank you.
Councilor Sale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I want to go on record to say I'm not a big fan of fire. I've been around it too much. There's two issues that I had with this, and one was the liability. And when I saw the ordinance was drafted, so the owner of the building would have to have $1 million liability policy, and I talked to the owner, and he expressed that his insurance company was able to extend that to him. Those were the problems that I might have had, but they're all alleviated. So I will be supporting this ordinance.
Thank you, Councilor Sale. Councilor Steele?
Just for clarification then, the patio bump out is related to the eating aspect then?
Correct.
So how would, let's say you have an establishment that doesn't have that, a patio, and this is kind of it's including that, but it's going past that. How does a business go about developing that kind of a patio for them, for their use?
I would encourage them to reach out to the city to see if that's an option. On Main Street, we did include more bump outs. I'm sorry, I should have asked before I spoke. On Main Street, when we did the Main Street diet, that did include new bump outs for some of the businesses downtown. And so based on where we did that Main Street diet, you had options there. There's one right across the street here that would have the option to do it. But again, for each business, it makes sense for them to choose what they want to do. For the business down here, they choose to heat using propane heaters because financially you have to put in the gas line. It's going to be expensive for those private businesses to put it in based on the restrictions that we've done. And you're also losing tables. And so if a business doesn't want to put this fire pit in, they don't have to. Some of these are very small. You put those I don't want to name specific businesses, but if you look at where some of the bump outs are, you potentially could lose based on the requirement of how far it had to be from the building and the furniture. You could lose 2 to 3 tables. Well, do you want the fire pit or do you want people to be sitting there longer? That's up to each business, and maybe it's a wash for some. Maybe, we just allow them to do it.
Right. If I just may, but exactly. And I think it's a great amenity. Just having that patio area just in and of itself would be a real plus for any, I would think, a restaurant. So just moving forward, that might be something we can look at so that we have equal opportunity to different businesses, because it is a plus, I know. So thank you.
Any other discussion on this, Councilor Brecky?
I just wanted to say it was a pleasure for me to be on this end of this discussion, because I had the privilege of actually drafting this ordinance probably 30 years ago at the request of then Commissioner Lawila Hunking, who had the vision at that time after the city had just removed a plaza. We had put a plaza and closed out the streets, and it didn't work. The businesses were starving out. People just wanted to be able to park in front of the businesses. So it was kind of an experiment gone awry, and they took it out fairly quickly. And in its place, they put out what you have now is called a sidewalk, a pedestrian sidewalk with the bump outs. And what her vision was at that time was to model it after the Market Square in Omaha, Nebraska. And so I had the assignment of drafting it up and then watching and waiting for it to take hold. And I just told you, this was 30 years ago, and yet it's been taken this long for it really to take hold. And I think what we learned from that is that it's a matter of layering. And as the city residential has taken hold downtown and the services sector is coming in with the Ace Hardware and the drugstore, Lewis Drugstore, that is finally all coming together, that dream, that was her vision 30 years ago. So for me to step in, and this, I just see this as layering, and it's the same thing that Joe just got done talking about, just another layer of that experience, that ambiance you want to create downtown. And we should never quit thinking outside the box of making that experience better. And I would add, the State Theater, we're looking at that to the list of things that, we want to have that experience downtown and have a good downtown. And a lot of people during that period in the 80s literally lost their downtowns. They lost their main streets because they didn't take them seriously, and they didn't, really work on keeping them. And I think now we've seen this work pay off over the years, and I think it's really at its peak now, and it's really fun for me to come back and be here and be supportive of this and to see where it's come, and then just to add another layer of ambiance to downtown and to create that full experience. So I will be voting for it.
Thank you, Councilor. I'd like to call for a vote on this amended main motion, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 14, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the naming of a facility space on public property, Papa John's Party Room 1 and Papa John's Party Room 2 at the Midco Aquatic Center.
Welcome, Sky.
Welcome. Mayor, City Council, Sky Smothers, Recreation Manager, Sioux Falls Parks and Recreation. As we discussed last week with the approval of the Papa John's and Sanford Health naming application, the Midco Aquatic Center will be generating $257,500 annually in private investment that will be used to help offset operational costs for the facility. We do still have a few packages left to sell, and those packages are the lounge and reception area, the outdoor features package, and the health and safety package. The Papa John's naming application before you was approved unanimously by the Parks and Recreation Board on October 23rd. This application is to name the meeting rooms between the recreation and 50-meter pools, Papa John's Party Room 1, Papa John's Party Room 2, or Papa John's Party Rooms respectively, instead of Meeting Rooms 1 and Meeting Rooms 2. The term of the agreement is for 5 years with a $50,000 investment from Papa John's, Iowa. Papa John's will be the provider, the exclusive provider of pizza for retail, delivery, and dine-in. And again, as we mentioned last week, we do have an exclusive agreement with Dive-In Concessions to operate out of the facility, and they are also in support of this application. As you can see from the photos, the Papa John's logo will be placed on the meeting room doors associated with rooms 1 and 2. And speaking with the franchise owner, their intent is to use a frosted logo so the colors do not contrast with the other colors located inside the facility. And this is just another view from inside meeting rooms 1 and 2, looking outward to the recreation pool and the 50-meter pool.
with that, take some questions.
Thanks, Guy. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, you have questions for Sky on this? I'd entertain a motion on this item.
Move to approve.
Second, Selberg. Move to approve, Kylie, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? If not, a vote on this, please.
Council members Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes. Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 15, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the naming of a facility space on public property, Sanford Health 50-meter pool and Sanford Health mezzanine at Midco Aquatic Center.
Mayor, City Council, Sky Smothers, Recreation Manager, Sioux Falls Parks and Recreation. The Sanford Health naming application before you was also approved unanimously by the Parks and Recreation Board on October 23rd. The application is to name the 50-meter pool the Sanford Health 50-meter pool and the mezzanine Sanford Health mezzanine instead of just the 50-meter pool and the mezzanine. The term of this agreement is for 10 years with a $175,000 investment from Sanford Health that will be paid in one lump sum. Sanford Health will have exclusivity in healthcare, sports medicine, elder care, and weight management products and services. As you can see from the photo, the signage for the 50-meter pool is proposed to be on the north side of the pool, which is just left of the video board. In this photo, the signage that's proposed for the mezzanine will go on the block wall above the windows that overlook the recreation pool. And this is just another photo showing the wall of which the mezzanine signage would be located.
Thank you, Sky. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Council, questions for Sky? Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sky, tell me about, say there's a collegiate or NCAA swim meet and a group brings in their trainers with them from a different health organization. Would that still be permitted if
Yes.
they've got exclusive rights to the training? So
Yes.
that part would be separate?
Yes, it would be. And it's outlined in the agreement that they would be able to bring in those outside trainers if that is affiliated with that organization or the local club.
Like if there's a rental agreement, because the signage is the same way then in the agreement that it couldn't be illuminated or had to be covered because of a specific event.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for Sky? Okay. I'd entertain a motion on this item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move to approve by Sale, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion, Council? If not, a vote on this, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Thank you. Next item, 16.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 30, City Council, Subchapter, Organization and Procedure, Section 30.015, addressing the council time limit.
Councilor Brecky.
Thank you, Mayor. You have before you at this time a draft of a proposal to amend the public input ordinance. The City Council has been working together with the City Attorney's Office in reviewing our public input ordinance. We've kind of done it in pieces, and this amendment proposes to take a more holistic approach to reviewing the entire topic. The first thing that we did was respond to House Bill 1172, which was proposed by the state government and passed, and required us to provide a public input process at the end of our informational and special meetings and working sessions. And so we did that, and we now, at the end of each of those meetings, we have a period of 15 minutes where individuals can speak for 5 minutes on items that were on the agendas during those meetings. Then secondly, we addressed the public input at the beginning of the meetings, which you just saw, if you sat here through this meeting, which we called general public input, which allows anyone from the public to come up to the podium and address the council and speak on any topic. So in other words, it's an open microphone speaking. It occurred to me as we were addressing those issues that there were some other forms of public input that we needed to address specifically. And in the ordinances that we passed, and by interpretation, there were some unexpected consequences of assigning restrictions to public input that we really didn't intend. And so what this ordinance proposes to do is address the following three kinds of public input. Number one is public input on first readings. Currently, by interpretation, it's 3 minutes. And this ordinance is proposing no change to that. The second form of public input is public input on action items. And currently, that is also at 3 minutes. This proposed ordinance would change that to 5 minutes. The rationale for changing it to 5 minutes is it just seems incongruous that we have 5 minutes on items that we have a 5-minute public input requirement during informational meetings and working sessions on agenda items where we're just receiving information, and yet we only have a 3-minute time frame for those items that we're actually requiring action on, official action on. And so that's the purpose of correcting that inconsistency, is to set that time period for 5 minutes as well. The third kind of public input is public input during quasi-judicial proceedings. And at this time, there's really no limits to public input at quasi-judicial meetings. And I'm suggesting that what the language in this proposal actually just clarifies it, that during those hearings, when we're in that function, that we will follow due process. And what that means, basically in legal terms, is that we will be conducting those hearings in a manner that creates a meaningful opportunity for people to be heard. In other words, we're going to conduct those hearings in such a way that we have, that the public has, ready access to us to have a meaningful opportunity to present their side of the case. And so, we've modified that language to accommodate that, and it will be, of course, subject to the mayor's discretion with advice from the city attorney. In addition, it will be conducted in a way that the city council, if that exercise of discretion needs to be modified, Robert's Rules of Order will supersede that, so that city council members can add further discretionary waivers or additions of time, and if they want to, by amendment and by motion. So I guess overall what the purpose of this proposed ordinance is designed to do is to just clean up and make consistent and take a big picture look at how we're doing public input at our council meetings. And I guess when I was working on it, I had an eye towards making sure that the public had a meaningful opportunity to address their city council and to conduct their business with the city council in an open and communicative manner with their public body. I'm aware of, I proposed this at an informational meeting with the council, and there was some other feedback that I got on the ordinance after that meeting, and we have decided that there probably are likely to be a few further discussions and maybe some friendly amendments to this ordinance. And there was enough interest in it that I felt that it was appropriate for those discussions to be debated publicly. And so this is a first reading. I do expect there to be 3, maybe 4 amendments, and I thought it would be best to have them discussed publicly so the public can watch us work through it. And quite frankly, I may agree to some amendments myself to my own ordinance, because I'm anxious to hear what everybody has to say, and as I see how those amendments play out. So I brought it about halfway. I think we'll take it the full way at second reading, and I'm sure that we're going to come up with something I think that is agreeable to all of us, and it will be an improvement upon what we have now. So that's my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you, Councilor Brekke. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on public input? All right, councilors, before we get into discussion, can I have a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
Second, Nitzert.
All right, motion to approve by Councilor Brecky and seconded by Nitzert. Discussion on this item. Councilor Erickson.
I do, and if you'll spare me 1 second, I want to just pass this.
Sure.
I'll pass those down. If you could pass those down too. There are additional copies for the public as well, and in the name of transparency, I wanted to provide the amendment I intend to bring next week, and really have that or not next week. I know this will be proposed to be moved to December 4th, I believe is the date. But like I said, in the name of transparency, I wanted to make sure that this was out there as early as possible for the public to have their eyes on this, to offer any suggestions, feedback, and also for my colleagues. With this, essentially all this does is, I've really been diving into quasi-judicial. My opinion, I feel like we as a council should have a clear procedure and process of what is quasi-judicial, what requirements do we need to have. And so I've been working with Tom Greco and our attorney's office to really define that, and I will be sending out information to the council that really is, it's open for the public to see, but it's really an internal document for all of us to make sure that we are correctly disclosing items when those quasi-judicial things come forward for us. In looking at that and with talking to our city's attorney office, essentially all this does is takes the quasi-judicial and puts just a general guideline. It's 5 minutes. And for me, what that does, when we had our informational meeting and our city attorney was in front of us, the fear of what we currently have in place of 3 minutes is too short. I agree. 5 minutes is probably the best guideline. I think you can really grasp your idea around what you need to say, get to the point, and also communicate that here in public, as well as contacting us in all the other avenues. But the fear was, every time we continue to extend, we're not maybe meeting that due process. We're kind of maybe showing some favoritism. And so with that, I want to make sure that we have that clear guideline. 5 minutes is a good start. If we need to extend it, that's great. But as people come to us and prepare for us, they know having that 5 minutes that they can probably get to the meat and potatoes of what they need. And that unlimited timeline for me really shifts the responsibility of due process to whoever the chair is. It's really saying to the chair, imagine if we have an item coming in front of us that is a quasi-judicial, and you've got 2 people for it, 2 people against it. The 2 people for it are saying the same thing over and over, but they talk for 15 minutes. The 2 people against it want to say the same thing over and over, but in the discretion of the chair, they say, thank you, we've had enough time. That due process could be in the view of that person presenting to us as unfair, that we didn't meet that due process. So having that general 5-minute timeline really gives you that ability. It can be extended if need be, but there are a laundry list of items for quasi-judicial that are in front of this council often. So like I said, I did talk to Councilor Brecky about this in the past. She knew I was bringing this forward. We had a great chat about it over the last few weeks. I just wanted to get this in the hands of everyone as soon as possible, just so you're aware of why I feel it should be a general guideline and what that looks like. So it is there for the public. I will also work with our staff to make sure it's put online as well, so those that are not here do have the ability to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And I just want to clarify one thing. The motion that was made was to set a date and second reading for Tuesday, December 4th. So any amendments, proposed amendments, we're not taking those. We're talking through those, but those will be accepted or discussed at second reading on December 4th. Councilor Staley.
Well, my 2 cents is weighing in that I agree with Councilor Erickson, and I've already told Councilor Brecky this, but the 5-minute thing I think is adequate. And when it comes to quasi-judicial issues, we've dealt with a video lottery establishment being put in a residential area. We talked about a sign being put in front of a church. We talked about the demolition of historic homes. And I think maybe our trip to the Wiley's Bar was maybe quasi-judicial. I know we disclosed that we had been down there. So, but I will say, having been here for 2.5 years and having those things come forward, I cannot remember a time when 5 minutes wasn't adequate. for someone to say. In fact, I don't even know that we're even aware of time limits. We didn't, of course, have the little button up there to watch with the different colors, our little stoplight button up there. But I think 5 minutes would do the trick just nicely. My concern has been that I don't think that was ever broken. I said this at the mayor's meeting. I'm going to say it now. I'll say it again. We had some people concerned with our public input. It was getting lengthy, this general public input at the beginning. There are times we had a lot of public input. That was the problem, because we weren't getting to the business part of our city stuff. So we shortened it up, and as you see tonight, what did we spend? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? We really, it's kind of like just evaporated. So, but in the midst of that, we also shortened up that business part. The second readings, the hearings, the resolutions, that's, I think, when people really have a right to put their cards on the table for 5 minutes. So I'm very pleased that we're talking about this. I wish we could have talked about it to start with, because I would have easily gone along with this. And so I thank Councilor Brecky. And I also thank her for bringing this forth with an informational to start with. I know she's talked with everybody. She's tried to collaborate. And so I agree with Councilor Erickson. I will be supporting that amendment.
Councilor Neitzer.
Thank you, and bear with me because this is going to be my meat and potatoes statement. I'm going to keep it shorter when we have the second reading. I support this ordinance, which is why I signed on to it. I can support this as is. It definitely is a step in the right direction, but I also wish we would go even further, and I may propose amendments to that effect. It has become clear to me that I made a mistake supporting the revised ordinance that got us here today. I can only speak for myself. I take responsibility for my decisions, and I'm not blaming or judging anyone else. My support of the original proposal to move general public input to the end of the meeting was based on my concern that decorum was eroding, which was my main concern, and secondarily that there was excessive input that was not related to city business, keeping citizens waiting for actual agenda items that affected their lives. I heard this concern from many people at the time. In the last 4 months, it has become obvious to me that the ordinance we passed had no effect on addressing those concerns many citizens and I had at the time. There's only one thing I credit with improving the situation, and that is this current mayor. The respectful way he has interacted with citizens during the meetings, reaching out to those in need and listening to their concerns, appears to be solving the problem. There was never a problem with second readings. There was never a problem with PowerPoints. There was never a problem with the majority of general public input, in fact. There was certainly never a problem with the length of the meetings. The length ought to be irrelevant. It will take as long as it takes. We don't have a time limit. We had a problem with decorum in irrelevant subject matter in isolated cases, and we were struggling to figure out how to address that. Because we cannot regulate content, we had to address time, manner, and place restriction. The addition of input at first readings was a long overdue and positive development that came from our previous ordinance. I'm grateful we added this opportunity for applicants and citizens alike to address it at first readings. Unfortunately, however, as I have observed the impact of the majority of our changes we adopted, I have observed negative consequences, either intended or unintended. Rather than bringing civility and decorum to our meetings, which is, as I stated, previously solved itself, our changes have only created challenges and negative impacts on citizens and applicants alike who find themselves overly restricted when trying to address us. It is clear to me 3 minutes is not enough time. While it is true that no matter what time limit we set, someone will always need more time, and some may argue for not changing the time again because of that, it should be abundantly clear to all of us that 3 minutes has repeatedly proved challenging to citizens trying to address us with their concerns or for applicants trying to make their case. Even for general public input, which is used to address items not on the agenda, 3 minutes is proving itself to be inadequate. Just last week, we saw a citizen from a homeowners association have to rush through his 1 page of public input, barely taking a breath and barely finishing in his 3 minutes allotted. His input was not excessive, rambling, or repetitive. It was a concise statement he wanted to make to us, and he could barely get it all in. I was frankly afraid he was going to pass out. And I saw that again tonight with some of the public input. This ordinance as proposed is a giant step in the right direction. It restores 5 minutes for items having final action. But I would go further. I would grant 5 minutes for first readings and general public input as well. While it is true 3 minutes for first readings is better than none, which it was before, I would point out 3 things. 3 minutes is a rush, we've seen that, and that will be true for first readings. Just because they can address us at second readings doesn't mean that we ought to unduly restrict citizens and applicants at the first reading. The whole point is for them to be able to address this earlier, and why not make it more effective? There was no problem with input at agenda items. The only reason for restricting to 3 minutes at first reading seems to be to make the meetings go faster, which shouldn't be the goal. Keeping first readings to 3 minutes is only going to make things more confusing for all of us, the council, the mayor, and the citizens, particularly those who are not seasoned at council meetings, there for the first time, which is most people. When people ask how much time do I get, the answer is going to be, it depends. 3 minutes for some, 5 minutes for others. Why not just make it simple? Set it to 5 minutes for everything, and let's just be done with it. If this is approved, we'll have 5 minutes at informational committee meetings and final action items, but then we're going to have 3 minutes on first readings. Let's just make it 5 minutes. Doesn't that seem sensible, clean, simple, understandable? In addition, I would restore electronic presentations. That includes not just photos, but PowerPoints and videos. Could digital media be used in a way that some don't like? Of course. Just like some may use words we don't like. The problem is in the attempt to prevent some of the outlandish digital media, we in turn have abolished all uses of digital media that are very, very helpful. PowerPoints and other digital presentations can be used very effectively. I've done it myself when I was at Public Input as a citizen. It can make a greater impact than words alone. Videos can tell a story, such as showing a concern a citizen has, such as their storm drainage. With the administration that just created a Department of Innovation and Technology, it seems incredibly ironic and bizarre to demand that citizens go back to hard copy and prohibit the use of technology we have at our fingertips. Finally, if we were allowed 5 minutes for all items, including general public input, or if we do allow 5 minutes for general public input, I would allow up to an hour of general public input. That would allow up to 12 people to speak if they so desired, and it creates a reasonable time certain that the business can move on. Again, to be clear, I can support this ordinance as written, but I wish we would go further for the reasons I have stated. I honestly have no idea what problem we are trying to solve anymore. We had a problem with decorum that has largely solved itself. I believe we've created more problems than we solved. We can solve them with this ordinance and move on. We have so many other things to do in the city. I can only hope we can grant as much latitude as possible so that we don't need to revisit this yet again in the near future. And I was probably well over 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will be a little briefer than that. In my opinion, public input has gone relatively smoothly since the changes have come along, and I would give a great deal of credit to that, to our new mayor and how he's pretty much addressed things. And when more time has been needed for folks, he has not hesitated. I think that's been carried out each time. I think we did have some decorum problems. I think that has been solved for the most part, so I disagree a little bit with what I've heard a little bit, that what happened wasn't needed. Again, there didn't used to be 3 minutes for first reading. Now there is. There used to be 5 minutes that you had on a topic, and that was at the second reading. When it changed, you got 3 minutes at the first and 3 at the second, which adds up to more than 5. That's 6. That being said, I'm not going to get back into the minutia of everything. I will say that I do appreciate, we did make a deal when we talked about this months ago that let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes. We can sit down and hash out whatever differences there might be and see if there's things that might need to be tweaked. I do appreciate Councilor Brecky bringing that up, and she has been very open and talking with all of us about her ideas. And I think that's a good place. And I agree completely with Councilor Neitzer. Let's get to this time, hash out whatever we got left on this, let's get this done. In the spirit of that compromise, I certainly can go with 5 minutes on all final readings. I can see sometimes we're putting too much of that responsibility on the chair. I think 98% of the time, if not 99.9, 5 minutes is plenty of time on a second reading. There's no reason why we shouldn't have it. We are again addressing a certain subject and business at hand, so that makes sense. So Again, we'll all disagree a little bit, obviously, on this again, and as we come down to the final draft, but I do appreciate Councilor Brecky again for bringing it forward, for talking to us about it, for throwing out her ideas, and again, in the spirit of compromise, I am willing to come that far too and say, let's do 5 minutes for final readings, and we were due for maybe a tweak, and that's my view on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion on this item? Councilor Brecky.
Yeah, I would just close by saying I had said earlier that I expected some amendments, and I'm very grateful for everybody's openness, and Christine bringing hers forward and Greg bringing his forward. But I hope everyone understands why I decided to just let us debate it out. After talking to them, I realized that that's just what we need to do. I just brought a shell, and I'm looking forward to a vigorous conversation and a respectable conversation next week, because I'm on December 4th, because I'm confident we'll work through it out. But I didn't want to. I guess I didn't want to do this because I could just tell we just needed to work through it. So I look forward to it, and I thank you for your openness and sharing those amendments in advance, because that also gives the public an opportunity to weigh in with us. You've heard what the different amendments are on the floor. Let us know, because this is your opportunity to let us know how you want to do it, and then that could change people's mind from what they've said tonight, where they're weighing in. You still have that opportunity to weigh in on this issue as well, and I hope you do. So thank you for everyone and working with me on this.
Thank you, Counselor. I'd ask for a vote on this item, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 17.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, extending the Surface Ambulance Service franchise of Paramedics Logistics South Dakota, LLC.
Good evening, Jill Franken with Public Health. This is the first reading of the ordinance to extend the contract for Surface Ambulance through May 20th of 2026. The original ambulance contract is a 5-year agreement that currently runs through May 20th of 2020. The REMSA board conducts the required annual performance reviews of Paramedics Logistics, and they completed those in July of 2016, 2017, and 2018. Each performance review has found Paramedics Logistics, leadership who's here tonight, to be in full compliance with the terms of the ambulance contract. It is also the responsibility of the REMSA board to overall determine Paramedics Logistics to be in substantial compliance with the specifications that are defined in the contract. If that full compliance is validated, the city/REMSA may grant an extension of the contract for up to 6 additional years. So then on August 22nd, 2018, the REMSA board found Paramedics Logistics to be in substantial compliance with their contract. And this was completed through ongoing performance reviews that were presented, as I noted earlier, each year, as well as looking at the reviews that were provided by Julie Charbonneau in meetings monthly, as well as obtaining community stakeholder input. And this stakeholder input that was presented to you came from Paul Niederinghaus with Metro Communications, Chief Burns, Sioux Falls Police, as well as Chief Goodroad with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, Dr. Jeff Luther with our EMS, who's our EMS Medical Director, Minnehaha and Lincoln County County Emergency Management weighed in. REMSA Medical Board was also provided input. Our Finance and Purchasing Department also weighed in, as well as Avera McKinnon Hospital and University Health Center, Sanford, USC Medical Center, and Avera Heart Hospital of South Dakota. In addition to the substantial compliance that was validated through the REMSA board, all of the stakeholders support a 6-year extension without reservation. So next, REMSA provided a report to you, the City Council, on September 11th at the Council Informational Meeting, which included REMSA's compliance review and the board's recommendation that the City of Sioux Falls extend an offer of a full 6-year contract extension as allowed in the contract. On October 9th, the City Council was briefed on the letter from the City of Sioux Falls to Paramedics Logistics offering the 6-year contract extension. Paramedics Logistics responded with a letter dated October 11th of their acceptance of this offer to extend the agreement 6 additional years. Again, the current agreement ends May of 2020. Approval of this ordinance, which is scheduled for December 11th council meeting, will extend the agreement to May of 2026. So a couple of things I just want to add to that summary of how we got to today. Is at the last time we presented in front of you at informational, Councilor Neitzer, you asked for some items to be brought to this meeting when we brought it for first reading. And so a couple of things that I will share with you. One is that you asked for information about the bond or contingency that we have in place should there be a breach of contract. And so from page 8 of the contract, it does specifically talk about a bond. There's several ways they can meet that obligation, but it's a $1 million performance bond that they're required, and they present that to us. Julie works with Mike Bureau every year to ensure that we have a copy of that on file. And then there's also, to the next section of the contract talks about default or termination and emergency takeover. And there are in the contract that is stipulated, but then also in the RFP section of the agreement or the contract between the city and Paramedics Logistics, there's also a number of definitions of what breach looks like. And so should that occur, there would be the mechanism then for an emergency takeover. And we have very substantial plans in place that are regularly updated to make sure that we have all the tools and mechanisms needed to be able to have that takeover completed. And then also with regards to the financial audit, I think you asked about that as well. There was something on page 43 of the RFP, it requires that Paramedics Logistics provide the city with financial statements on an annual basis. They've been compliant with this requirement. It specifically states in the agreement that on an annual basis, the contractor shall provide the city/REMSA with audited financial statements by certified public accountants for contractors' ambulance operations in the city and or separate business records of financial accounting of any other businesses that share overhead with the contractor's ambulance service operations. So the last financials were provided to the city finance for fiscal year ending October 31st, 2017, and they were reviewed by our finance department. Paramedics Logistics now has a new fiscal year that ends December 31st of 2018, so they'll submit those financials shortly thereafter. Then there was a third question, and that was around the contingency plans if there was need for an emergency takeover, and I already answered that question. So I think that covers what I needed to bring tonight for this first reading.
Thank you, Jill. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Jill? Councilor Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Franken, when the public asks, what's the value of this contract? You know, when we approve contracts each week, we usually have a value of what the contract is for the amount of the contract. What would that be?
I would say the value of that is 24/7 emergency ambulance service, complete and comprehensive emergency ambulance service at no cost to the city for that service. I know there's been questions about, we have, you mentioned the word layered, and I think about that with our EMS system, and that's a good way to kind of talk about our EMS system when you think about the layers of response that are in place with a high-performing EMS system, and we subscribe to that. That's how we built the RFP, was to have that high-performing EMS system. And so what you're getting for that value is that ambulance service component of that EMS system, 24/7, 365 for all residents, anyone who lives, works, or enjoys Sioux Falls and needs that service provided for them. Does that answer your question?
It does. I was trying to get around in a roundabout way, because when a citizen gets an ambulance ride and gets an ambulance bill, they're probably not going to accept that as an answer of what they're paying and what the overall amount of the contract is and what the billing part of it. And we're probably not going to get to what that dollar figure is of billing and what the value of the dollar value. I guess I got to differentiate between $1 million and $1 million worth of value and trying to put that together. I think you made a good point about a cash payment or there's no city money that are involved into the contract. So last week when Chief Goodroad was here in the fire department, we approved the firefighters contract, and we put in a stipulation, or one of the things that was negotiated for was extra pay for firefighters who do ALS services. So do you know what we're paying in additional fees, or what we budgeted for in additional income for our firefighters? So to me, that would be a payment that we're making, because we're paying the $1 an hour more to those firefighters to provide the service, and as a backup to being able to provide those services before an ambulance arrives.
I don't have that answer for you.
We'll work on it. I'll ask. It was one of the things when you said that just came to me while we were talking about it. The other thing I guess I'm really curious about is there was a major change in philosophy from the REMSA Medical Board for firefighters to provide ALS type services to patients. Because in the past, we've made that determination that the firefighters and the paramedics that are part of the fire department wouldn't perform those services. So what happened? What was the change in philosophy, or where did the medical board make their decision to say that it was important for the paramedics to provide that service, those services?
Well, I certainly can't speak on behalf of everyone. There's so many individuals that are part of those rich discussions in terms of what should our ambulance, our EMS system look like moving forward and into the future. But as far as the philosophy, I would say that primarily it is based on the fact that when Paramedics Logistics, at that time Paramedics Plus, when they first began doing services here in Sioux Falls, I think it was that philosophy of working in partnership and together with the EMS community. I think that really changed sort of the tone, because I believe, it was considered less of a priority perhaps when rural metro was part of, and I think there was probably some staying in your lanes back in those days. But knowing that we are working on a much more comprehensive and a much more integrated EMS system, I think philosophically it just lined up well, because we're starting to see so many more rich discussions happening in that area and that space. The other is, we have also said that, okay, while this is a recommendation for a 6-year extension to this agreement, we also know that not long after we get into that 6-year time frame, we need to be having conversations. So when we're bringing this to you, even in the time frame we are, please know there's been a lot of discussion way before this that we've all been having as leadership within the EMS system, which then leads to some of those types of discussions occurring. What should we be doing now to be preparing for the eventuality that we have to continue to keep moving along and saying, should our system look different in 2026 once this 6 years is up? So.
If I could, Mayor, could I get one more in here? Just, I want to make sure I do it right, but it's patient care logistics, so I'll get the right, that's what citizens are going to see, so I want to make sure I get the right process down the name changes. But I know when we had this discussion about ALS in the past, one of the concerns was, or what I was hearing from the medical board, and I think via some of your being in front of us before, was that we didn't want the firefighter paramedics to do intubations and things because they didn't have the same experience level that people that were doing it on a regular basis, and there's the potential to do that. I didn't agree at the time, not because I have a huge medical background, but I had a trust in what the paramedics that are well trained in our firefighting services is. And as part of bringing this contract extension forward, the concerns that I hear on the street is that the level of experience that patient care logistics has is that their employee turnover has been higher, and the level of experience that the paramedics and the EMTs that do arrive from the ambulance crew certainly are considerably less than what the paramedics are that are part of the fire system, and that they're really the more trained professionals on the scene. And so I think this change is really important. Is there a way to address, as part of the contract, the experience level of the crews that come from patient care logistics? I know we've looked at turnover rates over time and some of the pay things that have happened, that they've made considerable improvements in pay. You know, we've granted increases so that they were able to do some of those things. But do we look as part of this of the experience level of an ambulance crew and how it fluctuates over time with the amount of experience that crew has?
Well, first off, we do look, it's reported to us how they're doing with turnover when they're hires, and you know, I know that's something that's reported at the REMSA board meetings. So I guess I'm not sure where the question fully is that I should answer, so I'm going to suffice it to say that I'm not sure what evidence there is to support that paramedics logistics or patient care logistics is less well-trained than our fire department. There has been intentional efforts actually to support that they will train together and that there will be cycling out of the paramedics and the fire service to train with the paramedics in the ambulance service. So I guess I'd like to see if where the evidence is to support. The other thing with intubations is this. Science in healthcare is constantly changing. And so when we were talking about the risk of intubations maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it's completely different discussion now, because the way we manage airways is different. Technology's changed, the opportunity to use new methods and new equipment that makes it much safer for paramedics to be able to safely obtain an airway and get oxygen as needed to a patient. It changes, and it has changed. And so I think that's why we can't really always look at the past of where we've been with something, but really looking towards the future and what opportunities do we have for not just the paramedics with our ambulance service, but also with our fire service, and being able to work together for the benefit of our community. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
It answered my rambling, sure did.
Okay.
Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Franken, now there are standards and expectations, like with all companies and corporations, but they've been set for this contract and this company. And the way I've understood it, since I've been involved with this for the last few years and reviewing these type things, at least with this company in particular, they've continued to pass all the expectations and things that have been set in front of them with flying colors. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Staley.
I've said this before. I said it Friday. We have a mayor's meeting, and I stated this, so I'm just reiterating this for the public. When I got elected, this had just been, the contract had just gone into effect. And I've asked, when we did switch to this company, it wasn't a matter of 6-year extension for the other company. That discussion, that break with rural metro happened, I think, within a 2-year period. Is that correct? I think we brought that up. They were not given 6 years notice that we were going to be looking at something new.
There was a variety of ways that the contract was extended with rural metro over the 20-plus years that
we... So a change was made, RFP was put out, and we spent $90,000 to help us do a search for a new ambulance provider. My concern was, I was thinking these last years, we have a 5-year contract. When that's over, we're going to be able to kind of be freed up to maybe look at other options, to reevaluate this. And then this comes up that we're doing this extra 6-year extension. So, and I'm thinking that means that we will continue to give them an automatic 3% increase, that they will be allowed to have a 3% fee increase. Is that correct?
Or the cost of living, whichever is greater.
Okay. And really, when we say it's not costing, no cost to the city, it's a cost to the citizens that are using it. They're the ones who are going to see an increased cost for their ambulance bill. And I know that there are write-offs, and there's Medicaid and Medicare and all sorts of things. And I also will tell the public that, and I said this the other day, we don't really get to know what kind of profit they're making. We don't know if they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. We don't know if they're making $1 billion a year. We don't know, because we don't get to see that. That's their business. If we had our city handling this, that would be all out in the open. It'd be transparent. So that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to be looking at that. I was told when I proposed that maybe we could do this contract maybe for 4 years. Apparently the conversation is, and you just said it yourself, Director Franken, that we can be having these conversations in the next 6 years. Really, it's 8 years, or 7.5. But what I was hoping is we could maybe give them a 4-year contract and offer that a little extension, and then we say we want to give ourselves some lead time. I was told last week that they're going to be buying all new ambulances. If we give them this extension, we will have all new ambulances, and I want the company to commit to that. Where I'm going to be hearing that during the second reading, be ready to commit that all the ambulances will be replaced, because that's what I was told last week. And that's one of the reasons that you are going to be hesitant to take anything less than this 6-year extension, because you're going to be investing in all new vehicles. I do think I'm hearing great things about what our fire department does when it comes to being the first responders for our people. So I'm just having some hesitation about this, and so I'm glad we're having the discussion now. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jill? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just want to point out, again, we can debate both options. I would like to point out that, whether somebody pays the bill or the city pays the bill, the city, every dollar we spend is taxpayer money. We don't print money. So if we were to take over the system and we do it, which if that's the way we got to do it at some point, that's fine. It's going to cost citizens money. It's just going to be going in a different direction. Nobody's going to provide it for free. This isn't a charity. It's a service. And so I just want to be clear about that it doesn't come for free. So that's it.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just want to remind the public that this RFP came about because it was an audit done from a long-withstanding contract from one provider. And so during that audit time, there's a suggestion and a recommendation to look at an RFP to see what new technology, what are we looking at, what kind of service can we expect. And I don't know about you, but for me, I want cutting edge for an ambulance service. I want you to show up when I call you. I want you to be professional. I want the fire to be there as well. And I've used this system from being in a car accident and can't say enough great things. But I want you to keep growing. I want you to keep doing great things, keep investing into the system, keep investing into your employees. I have zero evidence that you're not doing that. All of the reports that continue to come in front of us are really meeting and exceeding a much higher, more stringent requirement than we had previously. And that's nothing against our previous provider, because I think that they were providing a good service. I really do. But I think that the new expectations and the more stringent requirements that we've put on our ambulance service is good. It's good for the public. It's good for the citizens. It's what we expect. You want police to show up, you want fire to show up, and you want your ambulance to show up when you call. What I call 911, that's who I want there when it's needed. I see no evidence that this hasn't been met. I think it's great that we're vetting this. I think it's great that we're continuing those conversations. And so for that, I will be supporting this. And I'm excited for your presence in our community, but keep growing and keep reinvesting into your employees and to our community. Thank you.
Councilor Kiley.
Thank you very much. I too will be supporting this item when it comes, well, not only for first reading, but for second reading. The current provider has far exceeded the standards that have been established in the contract, and I mean far exceeded the standards that have been established, and certainly has provided services that have exceeded that of the previous provider too, which we are looking for. And I do understand, you know, the idea of possibly having our own service that the city of Sioux Falls provides. But unless the city of Sioux Falls intends to get into the transport business as well, the likelihood of these services for ambulance services to go will increase to the individuals that need them, that are in the need, because that's not where the profit is in the transports. Or in the actual emergency transports. It's made in the scheduled transport. So once again, I will be supporting this item as it moves into the second reading. Councilor Sale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the benefits about having the gray hair that I do, I've been around for a long time. When I got on the fire department, Pat Measure at that time was a EMT, and he pushed all the firemen to be EMTs, and he had a lot of resistance. It was so antiquated at that point. We didn't want to do that. We were firefighters. And it's evolved. There was an assistant chief at one time that asked us to rewash our rubber gloves because they were so conscious of the money. I've sat and listened to the CareTrom wars. And we're at this point now where I went to the fire chief and the union president and I said, tell me if it's working. And they told me it is working now better than it ever has been. And they don't want to see a change. So that's why I'm going to support this motion. As a matter of fact, let me make a motion to set a date for hearing second reading Tuesday, December 11th.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Sale. Motion by Councilor Sale, seconded by Kylie for the date and second reading for the 11th. Any other discussion? Councilor Staley.
Well, so I'm hoping, because I'm hearing two things here. I'm hearing that we're going to have a discussion. There's a possibility that we could let the fire department take this over. And then other people are saying, no, that's never going to happen because this is all working fine the way it is. I would want to know, I'm wondering in other municipalities where they would have their city taking care of it, does that mean people don't pay anything for an ambulance ride? Or I was thinking that then the city would start collecting that money, so it's not like it would be done with a charity thing in mind. But I have talked with some members of the fire department myself, and they are open to exploring this down the road. So this is an interesting dialogue that we're having. I mean, but our city and our citizens deserve to have this discussion, and so we'll see where it takes us.
Mr. Mayor. Councilor Erickson.
I agree with you, Councilor, and the thing that I want to say is down the road. I think that possibility is certainly a possibility down the road. It's not ready today. It's not ready for us to look at that at this point. And right now, we've got a great provider, and so down the road, maybe that's something that we continue to look at, but not right now.
I'd like to call for a vote on this, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 18.
A resolution amending the 2018-2022 capital program.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, Mayor and Council again. This is Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. This is the companion item to item 11 that you appropriated the funds for the arterial street program. This updates the capital plan, and we would ask for your support. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have questions for Mark?
Move to approve, Kylie.
Second, Brecky.
Move to approve, Kylie, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion? A vote on this, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg? Yes. Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 19, a proposed resolution vacating the South Emory Avenue right-of-way from the north line of Lot 2, Bacon's Addition in Government Lot 2, Section 12, Township 100 North, Range 51 west of the 5th PM Lincoln County, South Dakota, to the city of Sioux Falls, to lots 12 and 13, Block 1 of Galway Park, addition to the city of Sioux Falls, Lincoln County, South Dakota, according to the recorded plat thereof.
Hi, Council. This is the first reading for a street vacation. This is an unimproved right-of-way today. It's a piece of pasture land. There's one property owner that owns both sides, and then there's two houses that are on the southern tip of this that have also signed in support of this street vacation. This is generally south of 57th Street and west of Sundowner. Have a couple other slides to zoom in on this. Since there is only one property owner, we didn't see that the need for a public meeting, and there's 100% acceptance. It's, again, today not used for the use of public right-of-way. These owners are trying to clean up their property with this encumbrance. Here's a picture looking south. Here's a picture from those two houses that were on the southern edge looking north through that farm pasture land. And again, there will be a second reading coming up on this in a meeting in the future. We'd ask for your support to move it to the second reading.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, any questions for Mark or motions?
Move to approve, set the date to Tuesday, December 11th.
Second, Neisert.
Second reading.
Moved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Neitzer. Any discussion? A vote on this, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
All right, that is passed 8-0. Before we wrap up, want to recognize, I think we have Augie students here. You guys Augie students? Thanks for staying with us. Appreciate you being here.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilor Steele.
Can I take a personal privilege?
Can.
Since, are you Augie kids, any of you in choir? Yeah, okay, well, it's our mayor's birthday, so let's sing happy birthday to the mayor.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Paul. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I feel very red right now. Thank you. All right, I'll get this meeting back on the rails.
Move to adjourn.
Any
Second.
new business? No new business. Move to adjourn by Sale, seconded by Erickson. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you.
No place you'd rather be, right?
Woo.